Okay, hello everybody. So for me, it's good morning at least. Maybe for you, if you're in Asia Pacific, it might be the afternoon. Last time there was even somebody who joined all the way from New Jersey at 5 a.m., which is like a huge commitment. So again, thank you very much for joining today, and welcome to our final chapter of our growth setting series. It has been quite a journey. I hope for you, but definitely also for us. And I'm almost like a little bit sad that this is our final workshop. But I also have the feeling this is just the start, just the beginning of a much longer journey ahead. And I'm very sure there's going to come much more out of it in the future. And yeah, so without further ado, just let's get started on this. So Anna is today in her hometown, so her internet might be not that good. So if she drops out, it's not because of all like the energy and all the crazy and positive vibes we're sending all the way through the Wi-Fi. It's simply a technical thing. So all right. On that note, I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, so, and then here we go. Yes. All right. Yeah, today, as I said, it's like the final part of our growth planning series. We talked in the first workshop a lot about mindset. We challenged our assumptions, our beliefs, our limiting beliefs about learning. We looked at growth mindset. We looked at, depending on our goals, what we want to prioritize on, but also what we may have to unlearn. What are like the skills and aptitudes, but more mindsets that stop us from getting there, whether we climb the right mountain or not. And last time we also started a little bit to look at how, okay, now I know my focus and I know what I want to learn and focus on. So how do I approach what could be a good approach to select the right material? Am I going to take courses? Do I need to hire a coach? Do I need to read books, etc., etc., etc.? And because this is a question I've been constantly asking, or we have been constantly asking ourselves, what then the right resources might be. Because when we talk about return of investment, we want to make sure that with the time, money, and energy we have, that we get the best out of it, right? And that's what we're going to focus on today in this workshop. Again, feel free anytime to put questions in the chat. Anna and I are going to check them as much as we can. And in the end, we're also going to have some Q&A. All right. So the first part of the workshop there might be some things which are familiar to you because in the career month, I think last year, Alex actually hosted a workshop on rapid skill acquisition. So we're going to touch on that a little bit in the beginning. And then we're going to look at different kind of resources, the advantages, disadvantages, but also to check how are they in alignment with your goals and values. Okay, so we looked at identifying our target level last time a little bit, because the question is basically with what you want to learn, how big is your knowledge gap, yeah, and the things that you want to learn, is that something you really want to get proficient at? Is something you want to achieve mastery at? Or is it just something that you want to get the hang of it? Yeah. For example, in my case, my overriding goal is financial freedom, and my knowledge gap is tremendous, is huge, and I know I need to learn a lot of skills, a lot of also work on mindset and aptitude. So this also kind of impacts then later on how I approach my my growth plan and how I select my resources. Or is it just something I want to get the hang of it? Yeah. For example, I would say that my health and that my health and nutrition is on a quite good level. So maybe I just want to find out like yet another recipe or a wild food recipe, for example. And for this, maybe I just need to watch like a YouTube video or look something up in Pinterest. So there's, not much time, money, and energy I have to spend on that. So, but for some of you, it might be completely different. So this is going to be our central question for today. Are you trying to achieve mastery, want to gain proficiency, need to bridge a huge learning gap, or is it just something you need to get the basics on? Another good example is that was from Stephen Kotler, I think, when he talked about, okay, I need to, for me, it's important to understand when I run a business or when I'm coaching that I understand what's in the contracts, or when I write a contract, that I understand the basics of legalese. But do I need a law degree in order to understand and read or make contracts, right? Probably not. So that might be like another example of, just getting the basics and not achieve mastery in this area. Okay. So, and yeah, basically this question is based on the idea of sufficiency. So how much is sufficient? How much knowledge do I actually need? So that's also something we looked at in the last couple of workshops. So, oops. Now, when it comes to learning resources, and again, if you watched Alex's workshop on rapid skill acquisition last year, there's some things I took out because I think it's going to help us also in this workshop to basically develop an approach of how we select our materials. So if we have like a very huge learning gap or want to achieve mastery on it, there's some steps that we can take. And one, it might seem obvious, but I think it's always good to have this reminder to, first of all, identify the highest frequency material. Yeah. So if I want to learn about financial freedom or health and nutrition or spirituality, yeah, what are the most 5 recommended books, courses, etc. on the topic? Yeah. So what I always do when I want to learn about something that is very important, I always look at, okay, so what are the most recommended ones? I also look at certain reviews people wrote, like on Amazon, for example, and to also get an idea, what is exactly the thing that people got out of this book? Because just looking at star ratings is sometimes not really enough, I would say. It's also interesting to see, like, okay, looking at what the people took out of this material, is it maybe an indicator that I also want to purchase it? Yeah. So just because it's like the 5 most recommended sources, the 5 most recommended books, it's not necessarily applicable to me all the time. But especially when you're new to a certain topic, it can be quite helpful. And actually, Stephen Kotler has an approach, and he calls this, if I recall this correctly, the 5 books of stupid, which I found very interesting. So basically, his approach is the first book he reads is basically a general overview of the topic. So to familiarize with the basic principles, the basic concepts, and then he reads another book that is maybe a little bit more rigorous until he reaches the book which is like goes into very detail, which is quite academic. To be fair, I have to say he comes like from a journalist kind of view, yeah. So not everybody is a journalist, but I think it gives us an interesting idea and framework of how to approach this. Because one thing that happens if you select 5 sources is that you might recognize certain kind of patterns or certain kind of things that the authors talk about repetitively. Yeah. So I don't know, in the financial freedom world, the idea of like the money container, the mindset of how I am willing to receive. This is something that comes up over and over again from what I read, or that money management comes first before you actually start creating more wealth. yeah, I'm also talking from a novice point of view, but I just wanted to provide like an example of my current experience. So because that might give you a hint, okay, what are the exact skills then that I want to focus on first? Because when 5 sources, even though they may have a slightly different approach, talk about very similar things here and there, then you might recognize the pattern and see, okay, these are the skills that I may want to focus on. Yeah, the point 2, what are the similar things all these books or resources talk about? And then we have a kind of set of sub skills that you want to learn. For me, for example, for this quarter, it's my main focus is on just getting my money management system right. So I'm not going to look at any I don't know, investment or cryptocurrency or anything that's out there. Just do this one thing, this one sub skill first. So now looking at different learning resources, there's of course more than reading books. There's also courses you can take. There's also the question of, at what point do I hire a mentor or a coach? But I would like to start off with a very interesting value proposition that books have. Because essentially, and this is also what I got from Stephen Kotler, is when you choose to read a book, and I know that many people say I don't have the time to read this. I hear this all the time, actually. But essentially, the return of investment is that you give an author time in exchange for their ideas. And what it comes down to is that when you look at like the process of how a book was written and created, on the one hand, you might think like an author needed like 2 years of time, but essentially it's often like 15 or 20 years of research and experience in a condensed form for you. And if you look like at the trade-off, say you have a book of 300 pages and you spend, I don't know, 5 hours of your time on it, you basically spend 5 hours of your time for 15 years of somebody's research and experience. I think this is, I personally find this very powerful, especially when I keep tell myself I don't have time to read this today, but the benefit and what I get out of it, and also looking at the cost. So a book was cost, I don't know, let's say 20 euros or I don't know, $20, depends on whether it's like a hardcover or a paperback or maybe online, maybe a digital cost is even cheaper. What you get out of it, basically. Plus the other side bonus, like it extends your vocabulary. There are also studies on how it improves your concentration. I don't want to labor too much on that, but regardless if you consider yourself a reader or not really a reader, I just think it's important to put this out there, how valuable it is to be a reader and to acquire books as well and to engage with the content. So another thing, and I found this a little bit tricky with online courses because there are obviously tons out there, especially nowadays. Yeah, there are platforms like Coursera, Udemy, and it's I find it a bit difficult to like compare books with online courses, mentoring and coaching, because it kind of caters to different needs that you have at different times, I would say. So one thing is, at least the way I approach it, I ask myself a couple of questions before I choose to take an online course. And the first thing is the content directly conducive to take consistent action towards my goals? Because what we want to actually achieve with this course is to bridge this gap between knowledge acquisition and actually implementation of what we learn. So I know that that we keep on mentioning Mind Valley courses all the time, but basically using these questions was actually also a way for me to dissect why these kind of courses are so powerful. Because like at the end of every lesson, there is like an action step, something you can implement straight away. So, and this is for me like, you know, a benchmark. Am I just gonna get, I don't know, 2 hours of just information, or is it also combined with something I can implement straight away? I recently, for example, I did a Udemy course on meditation, and it was kind of interesting, but it didn't really lend itself to implementation. It just gave like some thoughts and ideas. So that was not such a, it was quite cheap. Yeah, many Udemy courses are quite cheap. But it's not only about, you know, the investment of money, but also the investment of your time, you know, and what you get out of it. Then, of course, the question of highest frequency material comes back in. You know, how requested is that course? Is it how well recommended is that course? And again, here it's at least important for me to look at, you know, the specifics, like looking at reviews, for example. What is it exactly what the people got out of it? And is it something that kind of refers to what I want to get out of it as well? Also, for me, for online courses is the question of accountability. So is it connected to maybe a social network? Can I exchange idea with some people? And is there some system that helps me to stay on track with taking the online course? Especially with me taking online courses in the past, I remember how many I started but never really finished. To be fair, I would say I was a different person 2 years ago than I'm essentially now. But I think as life bookers, we all are really aware of the power of accountability and staying on track. So the question of, is there something that holds me accountable apart from myself, is also important. Number 4 is, is it accredited? I'm not sure if everybody agrees with that. However, it gives me, so it's more like the question of authority. So who is providing that course? Yeah, because everybody can create an online course these days, but it's also important, I think, to look at how knowledgeable is this person in this area. Is the course accredited? Does it have some credentials? You know, is it going to get me somewhere? These are the things I also really look at when it comes to online courses. So I've been talking a lot. Anna, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. You touched on like the books and the online courses, and I want to give a kind of from my experience what I would do. Basically, when it comes to choosing the material, it's as you were saying, I would look at authority, but I wouldn't use the authority as like, oh, this is great because this is Jim Quick or this is Tony Robbins. I would also, when it comes to picking topics for me, I would say, okay, what is my knowledge gap? What questions am I trying to answer to fill that bridge or to bridge that gap, right? So I have a list of questions, and so I check the resources to see if I find a resource that answers most of them, if not all of them. So for me, it's about bridging that gap, not just consuming random material, right? Especially if I need it for a specific purpose. So I go back to the why all the time. Like, why do I want to learn this? What do I want to get from it? So in some instances, I don't look at the accreditation. Like last year, I took an EverCoach, a course by EverCoach, and they're not ICF accredited. Eventually, they did give us credit for it, but it didn't stop me from taking the course, because for me, it wasn't about the certificate or the ICF label or whatever it was. I needed the fundamentals, and I saw that this course is going to give me that information. So basically, that's one of the things I do. The second one is I start with the information that I need now. So as you were saying, let's say you're focused right now on a specific part of your financial growth plan. you don't look at all the other things that might interest you or you want to look at in the future. So basically, you're creating a curriculum for yourself on the long run. That's the growth plan, right? So I choose to learn what I need now. In some instances, this means I read a chapter or two from a book, not the entire book, or the same with the courses. But another important thing here is to remember that there are levels to knowledge. Like in school, they don't teach you multiplication before addition. And if you open the book, the math book from the end, you'll feel super overwhelmed. So what I loved when you mentioned earlier is that the first book should actually be about the fundamentals. If you don't know the fundamentals of something, start with the basics, know the vocabulary, know the language, know the terms, know the acronyms, so that you understand everything else you read. And that's why I prefer to go to books and online courses versus podcasts or articles. Because if they are more specialized, specifically, it's kind of like a page torn out of book that you cannot read if you haven't read the previous ones, right? So it depends on your level of knowledge about it. And that's where you feel overwhelmed when you go on Google and just start searching randomly. So those are some of the tips that I would mention in this instance. Like, it's not just about choosing the actual, like the book or the course, but also based on authority or who it is, but based on what I need, what questions they answer for me, and what I need right now. So
it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I realized that also in like recent weeks when I took a book, sometimes there would be a chapter I might skip, or maybe a chapter I would focus on more, because this is exact, like also in preparing the workshop, for example. Yeah, so because like there's a different goal to how I approach my learning material. Of course, I'm not, if I have like 5 books on learning and growth in front of me, of course I'm not gonna read through all of them to prepare for the workshop, but I gonna scan through them, and then I might focus on a certain chapter, right? That I feel is most conducive to prepare this workshop. Yeah, very, very good point. One thing I think that is also interesting worth mentioning here, when Anna mentioned podcasts, and there might be also the question, you know, do I just need to listen to podcasts every day in my area? And while this is, or watch documentaries, for example, and whilst this is valuable, documentaries are never as condensed as books. So even I think if you just approach a chapter of a book, that might be more condensed knowledge than what you would gain from a documentary, or one part of a documentary. And actually, Stephen Kotler makes a distinction here between materials or resources that ignite curiosity, like documentaries, podcasts. So they get you curious, they get you interested. Hey, this is something I may want to dig in deeper, but to really dig in deeper, I need to choose something that is really more condensed and that really you know, gives me the opportunity to get into more depth. Okay, so we were also looking at the question of mentoring and coaching, and both mentoring and coaching are often used interchangeably, even though I feel that there are people who kind of do both. But a mentor is, at least to my understanding, really somebody who offers you personalized help. Yeah, for example, you even if you read books, get a detailed knowledge, or take a course, the person or the people who created this don't know you or your specific circumstances, right? And there might be a point in your life where you, regardless what you do, regardless what you try to implement, that you still get stuck in the same loop, and in the same feedback loop, and you don't make any further progress, and you don't know what to do next. Okay, this is might be more coaching, but mentoring is really more about, okay, there's a certain skill or specific approach I want to learn, and to maximize my performance on it. I don't know, I want to maximize my performance on sprints, and I just for argument's sake, consult Usain Bolt because he is, he's a master in this area. Of course, with mentoring, and Anna and I also discussed when it comes to return of investment, the cost factor, of course, is much higher than reading a book or taking an online course. So here it really comes, it's about the question of, I feel like, how big your knowledge gap is, how important it is for you to maximize your performance. Is it really such a big leverage that you need that, or rather not? So I think these are decisions you kind of need to make in this area. However, with mentoring, and maybe that's more anecdotal evidence, and I really suggest doing that. It won't hurt to, whenever you read a book from somebody, or if you feel somebody can, it doesn't always have to be like a thought leader, it doesn't always have to be a John and Missy Butcher or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates kind of person. It just also can be a person who is simply more knowledgeable and more skilled in what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, right? And one thing I did a couple of months ago, and I got this strategy from a podcast in this case, from Jason Mark Campbell. If there's somebody out there that you feel who could mentor you in a specific skill because he or she is advanced in this area, and you feel that maximizing your skill set in this area will definitely bring you forward. What I did, I reached out to that person on LinkedIn and I asked, okay, can you give me 30 minutes of your time, no more, once a month? I ask you 4 questions and try to implement it. And actually that worked for me, because often I think what I realized is there are more people out there who really love to help than you sometimes might think. So I'm actually working together with the mentor right now, and we just meet once a month for 30 minutes. I ask 4 questions, and then I implement it and give feedback 1 month later. So, and that's actually quite cool. It's also I realized quite beneficial for the mentor itself, because there are people who do feel honored. I feel when they're being asked for help. I'm not saying it's working all the time, but it's something I try to do, and it's at least worth trying, I would say. I'm not sure if I still have the podcast somewhere saved, but if people are interested, I can forward that. I think it might be a very good idea to try that out.
Can I add something here, Christian, if you're done with the mentoring quiz? Now, obviously, with every skill we're mentioning here, there are always kind of like 2 sides or multiple sides, right? So with mentoring, it doesn't mean that you have to kind of also go to just one person. So for example, with our accountability group, we're exploring of like mentoring each other. Like each time we meet, one of us teaches the rest of us a skill that they're good at. And it's really good to learn from different people, as Christian mentioned. But there's also that aspect of mentoring where you block yourself from other perspectives if you're just following one person. Like, as you can see, Christian has a huge influence from Simon Cutler. I have similar influence from Greg McGowan, because I've been kind of indirectly mentored by them because of reading all their books and listening to their podcasts and reading their newsletters. But just be careful that you don't become a student of one person. And if you want to have more perspectives and diverse perspectives, then explore other options as well and read other books and resources. Unless you want to become a student of Picasso, then you would want to be mentored by one of his descendants, followers, whatever they were called. Or it's a similar thing with any new kind of influencer out there or public figure. So just be mindful of that you become closed off to other ideas if you just listen to or are mentored by one person, unless that's, as I said, some goal of yours.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. A very, very important point, because it's easy to get excited and then you approach it with a tunnel vision, and be maybe a little bit fundamentalistic about a certain approach. I mean, I've definitely been there. So it's basically, you know, all comes down to your why, and it's a really, I think you really need to be very clear that what you're going to learn is going to leverage your growth in that certain area. But as life bookers, I mean, you know, it's our goal to bring consciousness in every area of our life. So very worthwhile to bring this also in this you know, in this domain. Okay, so coming to coaching, I was wondering what might be yeah, a good framework, or what might be good questions one could ask him or herself before hiring a coach. And I don't have, I think I don't have any better way to outline this, but these at least would be for me the essential question I would be asking myself before hiring a coach, or questions I've been asking myself and that led me to hire a coach. I'd be curious to also hear from Anna or anybody else in this case, what you have to add to this. So the first question I'm asking myself is, you know, regardless what I do, I've been trying everything. I've been consulting all like the fundamental books or chapters, taking the courses, trying to implement it, but I'm still stuck in a loop. It doesn't have to be a negative loop, but it's basically a statement, and I do not make progress regardless what I try. Now, also, do I need somebody who helps me strategize so I can customize my learning towards what I need specifically? Because again, people who created courses or wrote books, they do not necessarily know your specific situation. You can apply it to your situation, but sometimes there's things you simply do not see, and you need like an objective third party who helps you to bring in a different perspective on those things. Yeah, also when you're completely stuck, cannot figure out the next steps that are right for me, might also be a hint to hire a coach. Of course, those of us who are in accountability groups, I mean, this might be, to be fair, a good starting point. Usually in this kind of situation, whenever I get stuck and I'm stuck in a loop, I always reach out to my accountability group first, because coaching is, of course, like a bigger financial investment than taking a course and getting your knowledge from books. However, it's when you're clear about what you want to achieve, and you're clear about that you need a third objective party who can provide you strategies and tools and keep you accountable, that might be a good hint. But usually I reach out to my accountability group first, and then if I still feel I'm getting stuck, then I will be hiring a coach. So right now I'm working together with a coach, yeah, with a career coach, simply because for you know, for these 4 examples, and I feel it's bringing me closer there. And for those of you who think, okay, it's a lot of money, but I also invite you to look at it in a long-term perspective. Yeah, it might be costly right now, but how much time and energy does it save you right now? So how much, it's also like, how much time and energy do you have to figure out everything on your own, and maybe possibly get stuck in a, you know, in a loop for a year or even longer? And maybe there might be somebody who can help you strategize so that you get the gist of it and get clarity within a shorter time frame, so you can successfully implement what you want to implement and get closer to your goals. Yeah, I think those of us who became Life Book Leader, it's also, I think, the value and the service we provide to our clients, right? So so again, return of investment is not always money, it's also the time and the energy. And maybe, like, say, the money that you spend on a coach might be also the money that you would otherwise keep spending on other resources, because you get stuck and then you get into procrast learning. We talked about this in the first session, and you keep spending and spending and spending. So it's interesting to look at this from a long-term perspective. Usually I reach out to my accountability group first, or of fellow life bookers, or any other circles that you're in that you feel can provide you a third perspective on that as well. Okay, so Anna, do you have anything to add regarding coaching, mentoring?
Yeah, let's see. So with the coaching aspect, it's not just about a coach per se. So as Christian was saying, you might reach out to your accountability group. One thing I do is if I'm confused and I feel like I'm in that storm, remember I told you, you have to be in the eye of the storm, so you declutter your mind. If I feel like I'm in the storm and I really cannot figure things out, I would actually ask my sister, say, hey, can I think out loud with you? Right? And she would point out what's going on. And basically, usually she would just listen and I would figure things out. It's very similar to a coach. So you might use different people in your life who are good listeners and who can help you. Some people would want to go to consultants who actually give you the advice, but I would definitely go for a coach, because I would say, hey, why am I stuck? It's probably because I'm not asking the right questions, and I want someone to ask me the right questions. So that's kind of where I would actually get to the point of going to a coach. But also what this resembles is it's very similar to how we use different resources, right? So for example, we use the calculator because we don't have the time to do the calculation on our own, or the energy, right? So it's always, you're hiring a tool or a person in some way or form or shape. It's the same with any devices I buy. Why am I buying this? Because I want to make sure that I get I'm putting in money to get return on investment, because it will help me with my time and energy. So it's similar with this one. If I feel like I'm really spending too much time and energy worrying about things and not knowing what to do and stuck in a loop, as Christian was saying, then I would say, okay, it's worth investing in some money, maybe even in some person to help me with this. So for example, right now I have a situation where I want to move to another country, and I felt so overwhelmed by all the things that I need to learn and all the time I need to spend and energy, right? So I'm paying a lawyer to do all the stuff for me. So it's about looking at all the resources, right? The money, the time, and the energy, and then deciding in what do I want to spend more time. And this is also not just about coaching, it also helps with deciding to meditate or to journal, right? So for example, you might say, I don't have the time, but maybe if you do have the time, but you don't have the money for a coach, but you have the time, you can actually journal yourself or coach yourself through journaling to find out your answers. So it's always just going to look at all the resources that you have and where's the return on the investment, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Anna. All right, so now, so having looked at at different learning resources, and maybe, yeah, I don't really want to say advantages and disadvantages, because it really really depends. But yeah, but looking at the question of what might be right for you in a specific point in time, there's one last thing we want to address in this last session, and I think like most part in our workshop, they would deserve an entire series or workshop on their own. So what we're going to look at now is when it comes to creating your growth plan. We also want to talk not only about, okay, what might be a good approach to select your learning resource and materials, but also how to set up your environment, right? And how to make time for that. So so Anna and I looked at 3 different important things, and one important thing is really decluttering, right? So decluttering your workspace, but also your digital workspace, because the more distractions you have, the more friction you have, because there's like this bing, something pops up, here's a notification there, there might be some pictures from your holidays, and then your mind wanders off. So whatever you can do, I think, to really have like a clean workspace with things that are well organized. That might be like one help, not might, I mean, it definitely is like a very helpful thing to keep in mind when approaching something, especially for me, because I have diagnosed ADHD. So I have an abundance of attention. So like, I'm just a, hey, squirrel kind of person, right? So, so like for me, I mean, look at my experience. I really need to have a decluttered workspace to really focus myself on the task at hand, and also the digital workspace. And with this, I don't mean only like a clean desktop, but also all the tabs that we tend to have open. And I get that because you want to get notifications. There's something interesting happening here, happening there. But when I really want to focus on something, like for this workshop, for example, like all my tabs are closed right now. So might sound self-explanatory, but if I don't do it, there might be a notification, and whether I want it or not, I might get distracted, and it's not very helpful to then focus on what you want to work on. Another thing is, and this is what James Clear in Atomic Habit talks a lot about, is when installing a habit, or also like a learning habit, it's very important to remove the friction. And what I mean by that is to remove any obstacles that would stop you from learning something or implementing something straight away. Yeah. For example, if there's some so if there's like a resource you consult, like a book, what about you put it on your table where you study the evening before, so it's already there. If you want to go for a run the next day, you already have your running clothes, your and your shoes out the night beforehand. So anything that because we use so much willpower also throughout the day, and everything that helps us to kind of remove the friction between the willpower to take first action, actually taking action. That's also really important. So I also have all my notebook out, is on the table for the next day, my pens, my pencils, so everything basically I need to learn, take action, to work on the most important thing for the day. To be honest, also for me, it's I'm personally intrinsically highly motivated, so I might not need it as much as I needed to, but especially in the beginning, it really helped me a lot, because when I come into the room and I see all my materials laying out there, like on the table, then that's a clear indicator for me. Okay, now it's time to get started. There's hardly any friction between me and getting all the things out and searching for stuff. It's already there. Anna, you have anything to add to?
Yeah, so with the learning environment, some ideas would be, or strategies, having a specific corner in your house for learning, or maybe going to a specific place to learn. Another thing I do is I separate learning from work. So I don't use the same device. So for example, I work on a laptop, I learn on an iPad. So all the content, like Mind Valley app is on my iPad. TED Talks are on my iPad. My books, everything is there. And I also set it to a focus mode. So if you have an Apple phone, I'm not sure about Android phones, but you can actually set that if I open this app, automatically turn on Do Not Disturb. So I do not get any other distractions when I'm reading, or when I'm meditating, or when I'm doing all those stuff. So that's kind of, those are some of the like tips that can help with the environment, because you really, as Christian said, you really want to make sure that there's no friction, there's no distractions, but also in some instances you want to create friction, like you want to turn off those notifications, you want to close all the tabs. So it's not, you want to create this friction between you and the distractions, right? You want to make sure that it's easier to focus on the learning, and it's hard to get distracted by anything or anyone else. And if you love some music or some drinks with learning, you think that it helps you, by all means, add those as well to your environment.
Yeah, a very important point. Yeah, there are scenarios where you want to reduce friction, but we also want to add friction from things that distract me, like notifications. Like on my phone, I think I turned all of the how's it called? You know, the bings. I turned it completely off, so I don't know when I get a notification. I actually have to proactively go to my phone and go to the app. And there's also like one powerful tool. I always keep forgetting the name of this guy who did a Mind Valley quest on overcoming distraction.
Near AL.
Yeah, exactly, this guy. One very powerful thing I found is like all the notification messenger app, you actually in my phone right here. So you remove them. I'm not sure you can see it. Like to the last frame, to last page. So I don't have them in my first one. So only the most essential ones, like taking notes or time. But everything, you know, concerning news or messaging, I actually add friction by putting them at the very end of my phone screen. So I proactively have to swipe and get there. So sometimes I even forget to check notifications, which doesn't make everybody happy sometimes, but it's, you know, it's good for me. Okay. Then also comes the question of scheduling your learning. And I know I didn't put it on there, but I know that, and at least this is how I grew up, that we tend to overvalue the idea of multitasking. I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I feel it has like too much of a positive connotation. Yeah? When you're a multitasker, you're like a achiever, or you are very efficient. But not only looking at my experience, but also looking at the research, is the likelihood is if you do many things at the same time, you won't achieve mastery, but mediocrity at best. And at least that's true for me. Especially when it's tasks that require like deeper level of thinking. So I'm not talking about talking to your mom on the phone and drinking a coffee at the same time. Of course, there's things we need to do at the same time. Otherwise, we would be screwed in some cases. But like working on a presentation whilst watching a documentary, these kind of things, likelihood is you might miss out on certain things and achieve mediocrity at best. Maybe there might be some of you who have a different experience, but at least I can only talk about my experience and also what I read about this. So, and one very efficient strategy that, just be mindful of the time, exactly. Is time boxing. So, and time boxing is basically like a tool that helps you to overcome overwhelm by scheduling dedicated time for what you want to learn and to work on throughout the day. And I will show you an example in a little bit. And this is from Stephen Covey. The main thing is to keep the main thing, or like a very powerful question. I think, Anna, that's from Essentialism. What is the one thing that I can do today so that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And I struggled a lot with that. Just these two spelling mistakes on that slide. I think it's a great example of how I did something else when I was working at the slide at the same time. So we have like a real life example of multitasking. Is to really focus on one thing that I want to learn or work on today. And I know it's difficult because everything seems to be important at first. But I also will show you in a second example. And one strategy I personally really embraced and like is the idea of traffic university. This is from Robin Sharma. And it's basically based on the idea that there's lots of dead time we have throughout the day. like sitting in the car, being stuck in traffic, being on public transportation, standing in line. And might this not be a good time that we could use for our own learning? So for example, I use public transportation every morning. It's a 30 minutes ride. And this is the time where I dedicate time for reading. And it's kind of a good feeling. You know, everybody else seems to be glued on their phones on the train, and you are the person who's actually reading a book and making proactive steps to learn and grow. Or also listening to a podcast when you're driving a car, or when you're standing in line. One thing I think Anna is doing is checking notes on the phone, like notes that you took over time, or checking saved articles, right?
Yeah, I read newsletters usually during those times.
Okay. Now, so this is an example from me. So you can, I use a Google Calendar for time boxing. So I basically make appointments with myself and color code them. So like the green time here is like I always start with me time. So something I want to work on for my own well-being, for my own personal growth. So before I check emails, before I read any notifications or anything that comes, you know, from an external viewpoint, this is the time that I dedicate to myself. And this is much more than, it's not really a question of how much you get accomplished, but much more about bringing consciousness into how you want to use your time and really owning your time. That's the most important thing. Then also, yeah, this was a week where I was writing on a research paper. So as you maybe can see here, like it's all purple and it's all focusing like on one task. I mainly want to focus on that day. And again, it's not so much about, you know, that I get everything accomplished, but much more about, you know, bringing consciousness into how you want to use your time throughout the day. And also you kind of reduce overwhelm, especially when you have so many things going on at the same time. And basically by just putting them, you know, out of your mind and putting them on a calendar, that's already a good step to reduce that overwhelm. So I think I'm not sure if there's a workshop from Jason somewhere on productivity. He also shows that, but time boxing is definitely a great tool that's really serving me. I'm not always super familiar with that, but it helps me to bring consciousness into how I use my time. Anna, you have something to add?
No, that's basically it. It's I just want to specifically focus on one point, that time boxing or calendar blocking or whatever you want to call it is a great tool to know if you have time for something and when you have time for something. It's more of a guideline, and it shouldn't create chaos in your life or panic because of you have to put things where they are and you feel like, oh my God, it's time, I need to stop this session so I can start the next one. So don't let it become another kind of tool that makes things harder for you. So what I do is I use it as a guideline mostly. So I don't stick with specific times, but I know roughly that I have this much time today for these things and I don't have time for other things. But it can become a blocker, so just be mindful of that.
Okay. So everybody, so we are now at the end of our workshop series. So I know it has been a lot of content, a lot of things that we took in, and it could be possibly a much longer series of 6 or maybe 9, I don't know, episodes. So I get it has been quite condensed and maybe quite intensive. But I hope it's a great starting point, or has been a great starting point for you to be clear about your beliefs and limiting beliefs on your learning, to identify what you need to learn, what to unlearn, how big your skill gap is, what might be the approach to identify your specific skills you want to work on, how you manage them, how you approach the learning resources, and also how you may want to set up your environment and also structure your time to implement your growth plan. So the workbook for this, it's going to be on tonight, so halfway through. and yeah, so the workshop time is in this case officially over, but of course we would really love to give some space to share some key takeaways, or to address any further questions in this workshop. You can, oops. Yeah, thank you, Sue.
Wow, this was really great. Thank you so much, Christian, for helping me create this. Actually, you did the bulk of the work. I'm super grateful for that. And maybe we can do another session like in a month or so and see how everyone's doing. Did you create your session, your growth plan? Where did you get stuck? Maybe you figure out that there's a piece of, a place in the growth plan, growth plan setting plan that we missed and we didn't cover, and you got stuck there. So we can build on top of this. Why not? As you said, there can be many more sessions and we can go deeper into different ideas. So we might plan something in a month or so. If you have, work on your growth plan, create your growth plan. And if you have any questions or you get stuck, reach out to me or Christian, and we will want to make sure that we have follow-up sessions to help you with them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, again, from the bottom of my heart, and thank you everybody for playing out, for your participation. And Anna, also thank you very much to you. It has been really a super pleasure to work together with you. It has been really great, and I enjoyed all our conversations and the collaboration. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, likewise. So awesome.
Okay, I see that